I always thought secrets were like shadows. Everyone has them, but they disappear when the light is bright enough. My husband, Robert, and I had been married for 34 years. 34 years of Sunday brunches, shared mortgage payments, and the kind of comfortable silence you only find in a long-term marriage, or so I thought. Last Tuesday, while Robert was at his golf club, I found a small key hidden inside his old leather briefcase. It didn't look like a house key. It looked like a gateway to a life I didn't know existed. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just followed the trail. And what I found didn't just break my heart, it changed the person I was. But the choice I made in the end, that was the part that left Robert truly broken. To our neighbors in our quiet Connecticut suburb, we were the gold standard. Robert was a retired architect, a man of structure and precision. I was Martha, the woman who kept the garden perfect and the tea hot. We lived the American dream. Our children were grown and successful. We had the 401k, the winter trips to Florida, and the mutual respect that comes with age. But lately, Robert had become distant. He started taking consulting trips to the city. He'd come home smelling not of another woman's perfume, that would have been too easy, but of expensive cigars and old paper. He was busy, he said. At 68 years old, what could possibly keep a man that busy? The key I found led me to a small private storage unit in the city. I expected the worst, evidence of an affair, a secret gambling debt. When the metal door rolled up, my breath caught. It wasn't a mistress, it was a gallery. The room was filled with hundreds of paintings. Some were beautiful, dark, and haunting. Others were chaotic. They were signed with a name I didn't recognize at first until I realized it was his mother's maiden name. Robert had been a secret artist for decades. But as I looked closer, I saw the ledgers. The paintings weren't just a hobby, they were a business. He had been selling these pieces for years, funneling the money into a separate offshore account. I found the bank statements tucked behind a canvas. The balance was nearly $2 million. While I was clipping coupons and asking him if we could afford to renovate the kitchen, he was sitting on a fortune that he never intended to share with me. He was planning his exit. He wasn't just hiding a hobby, he was hiding a future that didn't include me. I sat on a dusty stool in that storage unit for 3 hours. I didn't feel angry at first. I felt foolish. I had been the loyal wife, the one who supported him when his firm struggled in the 90s. I was the one who managed the household so he could focus on his career. And all that time, he was building a wall between us, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. He was waiting for the right moment to leave me behind with nothing but memories while he started over with his millions and his art. I could have called a lawyer immediately. I could have confronted him that night at dinner and screamed until my lungs hurt. But I remembered what my grandmother used to say, the best way to win is to let the other person think they've already won. I put the key back in his briefcase. I acted like the same Martha. I made his favorite pot roast. I asked him how his golf game was. He looked me in the eye and lied, telling me he missed a putt on the 18th hole. I smiled and poured him more wine. For the next month, I became a ghost in my own home. While he was at his secret studio, I was busy too. I didn't need a secret key. I had 30 years of knowledge about our joint finances. I realized that while he was funneling his art money away, he had neglected our actual retirement accounts, thinking he wouldn't need them. He had started transferring our joint savings into his private fund, assuming I was too old and too distracted to notice. But I noticed everything. I found a way to contact the high-end gallery that was selling his work. I didn't tell them who I was. I told them I was a representative for a private collector interested in buying his entire remaining collection, the one in the storage unit. They were thrilled. They set up a meeting for the collector's lawyer to finalize the sale. The day of the big consulting trip arrived. Robert told me he'd be gone for 3 days. I kissed him goodbye and told him to have a safe trip. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I called the movers. I didn't take much. I took my grandmother's silver, my clothes, and the dog. But more importantly, I met with the lawyer I had hired, the one who was now the legal owner of that private collection. You see, Robert had made a massive mistake in his arrogance. To avoid taxes, he had registered the storage unit and the art business under a shell company. But to fund that company, he had used money from our joint home equity line. In our state, that made the business a marital asset. My lawyer worked quickly. By the time Robert reached his secret studio to prepare for his big sale, he found the locks changed. He called me, his voice frantic. Martha, I've been robbed. Someone changed the locks on my office in the city. I stayed very calm. I was sitting in a beautiful rental house overlooking the ocean, 300 miles away. I told him, it's not a robbery, Robert, it's a liquidation. There was a long silence on the other end. What are you talking about? He whispered. I explained it to him slowly. I told him I knew about the paintings, I knew about the $2 million, and I knew about his plan to leave me. I've sold the collection, Robert, I said, to a buyer who appreciates the work. The money has been frozen by the court as part of our divorce settlement. And since you used our home as collateral for your secret business, the house is being sold too. You can't do this, he hissed. That art is my life, it's my legacy. I laughed, and it was the most honest sound I had made in years. No, Robert, the art was your secret. My life was our marriage. You destroyed your life the moment you decided I wasn't worth the truth. I hung up. I didn't block his number. I wanted him to see my life moving on. I spent the next few months traveling. I went to the places he always said were too expensive or too boring. I sent him a postcard from Italy. On the back, I wrote, "The art here is beautiful. You should have tried being honest. It's much more liberating than being talented." Robert ended up in a small apartment. Without the art fund he had spent years building, and with the legal fees mounting, he realized that he had traded a woman who loved him for a pile of canvases he no longer owned. He tried to call the children to complain, but when they heard the truth about how he tried to leave their mother with nothing, they stopped answering his calls too. The last time I saw him was at the final hearing. He looked 10 years older, the arrogance was gone. He looked at me with eyes that begged for some kind of recognition, some sign of the old Martha who would forgive anything. But that Martha was gone. I had made my choice. My choice wasn't just to take the money or the art. My choice was to value myself more than the lie we had been living. As I walked out of the courtroom, he chased after me. "Martha, wait, just tell me. Why did you do it that way? Why didn't you just talk to me?" I stopped and looked at him. I gave him a small, sad smile. "Because, Robert, I wanted you to feel exactly what I felt the moment I opened that storage unit. I wanted you to feel what it's like to realize that your entire future was just a dream that someone else had the power to end." He stood there speechless in the middle of the hallway. He was a man who spent his life designing structures, but he forgot the most important rule of architecture. If the foundation is built on lies, the whole thing will eventually come crashing down. I walked away, and for the first time in 34 years, I didn't look back. I had a new life to start, and this time there were no secrets.